Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster, and I want to thank you guys for joining me for something a little bit special, and certainly quite different from the generally contextless replays that I show you guys on the regular. This is the inaugural episode of a roleplay campaign. It's a little bit of... It's almost like community fiction in a way. So it's based on personages that belong to the Age Reforged community, some of the more dedicated players, those that belong to clans and things like that, of which I am one. And it's actually being run privately by the clan to which I belong. So it's unfortunately not something that I can involve you guys in directly, in the sense that you can't come and participate in the battles, because it's only between players in the clan. But it is something that you will be able to enjoy watching the replays of, and enjoy the story surrounding it as well. So without any further ado, let's take a look at some of the story. I hope you guys enjoy this. It's very different, I think, than anything that I've done before. I've never done a community-driven story, at least in this way, that involves members of the community as personages in the tale itself. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. The year is 1423 of the Fourth Age. Middle-earth has now become a plethora of cultures living side by side in relative peace and harmony. A new era of prosperity has reigned across the globe for centuries. The once great kingdoms of the Third Age have been dissolved and replaced with independent, cosmopolitan feudal kingdoms and baronets, tied not by kinship, but instead by morals and ideals. These bonds strengthened the very idea of coexistence and blurred the lines of both ethnic and regional cultures. The clans divided the world evenly amongst themselves, so that all clans could share evenly in the great bounties that peace had brought them. However, this peace, as is so often the case, did not last for long. In the year 1003 of the Fourth Age, a war of unimaginable scale consumed the clans of Middle-earth. What started as a border dispute between Durin's folk and the upstart War Clan escalated into a global conflict that engulfed almost all of the clans in devastating internecine conflict. The war raged for 3 full decades, splitting the clans into 2 major power blocks. Caught in an almost endless cycle of evenly matched battles, thousands died upon both sides, and the land was laid to waste, with neither alliance able to strike a decisive blow against the other. The war finally reached its end after the royal family of War slaughtered their own generals and almost all of the leading aristocrats before turning on themselves in due course. This act could have stemmed from an internal dispute, or it could have simply been the derangement of the royal family. In any case, at long last, the Great War had come to an end. The leaders of the remaining clans, as well as the newly emerged mob clan, met and decided to establish a neutral zone around the former Gondorian capital of Minas Tirith. Furthermore, to prevent future large-scale conflict, each year they would host a gathering of the clans to allow them to resolve their disputes between their various factions. This proved to be a highly successful means of remedying internal clan rivalries, and soon it grew from a simple gathering of diplomats and dignitaries to a means for the clans to prove their worth amongst the others in a series of mock battles and war games. Knights and lords from all across Middle-earth would fight for the honor of their clan and prove their worth in the crucible of battle. From the first of these contests, one clan emerged victorious over the others, the Knights of Middle-earth. More a knightly order than a clan per se, their entire society centered around the preservation of peace through strength of arms, and a strict chivalric code of conduct. Their strength and determination led them to victories against the most formidable opponents of the age, becoming feared and envied amongst all the survivors of the Great War. The lands of the knights were ruled justly, and before long the quiet of peace returned, for a while, to the shattered lands of the north, following the knights' victory during the annual clan wars. During this contest, many comported themselves with distinction on the battlefield, especially the newer recruits who fought valiantly in the early rounds against the best standing armies that the other clans had to offer. One such recruit was young Cavalier Starling. Such was his prowess that it was decided by the Grand Masters of the Order to bestow a knighthood upon him, along with the title of the Lord of Turgaron. However, joy turned to disappointment almost from the moment he arrived in his new land. For far from the prosperous farming settlement with forests full of game and lakes filled with fish that he had been promised, Starling instead found a poor excuse of a settlement obviously marred by years of mismanagement and neglect in a forgotten corner of the Order's vast lands. Broken promises, coupled with the stubborn peasantry's refusal to pay their tithes in gold or men, forced Starling's hand, and soon he rose in revolt against the yoke of his overlords, the Grand Masters of the Order, Rules, and DI. Starling was joined in his rebellion by a handful of wardens and rangers, as well as the Eastern Elves from the Baronet of Anduin, under Knight Jmonster, the only other lord to rally to Starling's cause. This blow shook the Order to their very core and threatened internal security across all of their vast holdings, with fully half of the Order's standing forces rising in revolt against their liege lords. Arguments erupted amongst the remaining lords and Grand Masters about how to proceed, and eventually they decided to pursue the young lord and his new host back to his barony, but only after precious time was lost in discussion. Soon enough, though, the Crusade army under the Grand Masters was joined by Lords Creed and Lord Muffins, the latter two's lands being regarded as the most populous and wealthy of all the lords in the realm. What they found in the young lord's wake shocked and disgusted them. Piles of the dead were left to rot in the sun, or cruelly impaled and left in agony. Such was the price of disobedience to Lord Starling. Shocked by the scale of this massacre, the two Grand Masters were caught in a moment of indecision. Rules wanted to secure the surrounding villages in order to get supplies and prevent Starling's wrath from escalating further. DI, however, refused to see the tactical sense of this, and demanded that they march immediately to confront Starling in person regarding this atrocity. Eventually, a compromise was struck. DI would advance his forces supported by Lord Muffins down the main approach to the village, while Rules would march around the settlement and advance from a second front, also supported by Lord Creed. The columns marched out into the dust and haze of the mid-afternoon, anticipation and fear on the minds of all the men as to what they would find next, and saddened by the knowledge that they would soon confront their own brothers in what could only be a destructive conflict, reminiscent of the Great War they thought they had all left behind them. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. I hope you guys enjoyed the little introduction. I hope you're as excited to see this story unfold as I am. One minor detail I may have forgotten to mention a little bit earlier is that it will be growing organically, so the results of the battles that you see before you are not pre-scripted. They will be played out like any kind of normal battle, of course with a little bit of extra rules here and there to make things a little bit more interesting. And the results will matter, although it is worth mentioning that this is really more of a test battle. So while it's important to the story and it will be written in, it will not follow the same rules as subsequent battles. So if there's a little bit of confusion there, that would be why. But without any further ado, let's take a look at some of the army comps here. I'm going to kind of just do them as one big thing because we're very spread out all over the place. One of the armies defending the town, which I believe is called Dunlarock, is a Rudar army, this one being commanded by Mechthorn, representing one of the lords who have risen in rebellion against the Grand Masters. He has brought some Red 9 pikemen. I believe he has 2 of them. Let's see what we have over here. We got some Gwythi Roctor as well, this army being commanded by Goddess Nimhain. Over here, another Cosmopolitan force, Eldar Makar, Eldar Atar, and 2 companies of the Eldar Mihadu Hatal, which are going to be under, that's Orange Phaedon, who's going to be standing in for Starling today. Another company there of the Eldar Atar, a bunch of Nora Eternal Warriors. I thought there was a bit more of a mix over here. Well, not so cosmopolitan after all, that's okay. Gotha Lima and Yaar are going to represent Orange Phaedon, and ultimately are going to be representing Starling, the Rebel Lord, in this battle. Another company there of Nora Eternal Warriors, Eldar Makar. I think we've covered the Eldar and Mihadu Hatal. And we can move in to some of the Wood Elves, this army be commanded by myself. I've got some Megal Eden. I believe I have one other company of Thandra Eden right here, which is for the most part my front line. My army is quite small comparatively. I've also got 2 companies of the Hathel E Tower. 1 and 2, you can see them right there. I believe I've got another company of them hiding up here on the ridge, because you never know when an archer company on Overwatch is going to be useful. I've also brought a single company here of the Rekbin Amon Lank, and in addition to, I've got a couple hidden one hidden company and a company that's out in the open of the Dagnirum Urch Eden. So 2 of my units of horse archers here. Well, let's see, let's pop back into the city, find some more of the Rudour forces, another unit there of the Red 9 pikemen. think they're really kind of all over the place here, so you have to just give me a little bit. Much of our cavalry, I believe, is up here as well. God's Name Hand's got a couple companies of Eldaritar Spearmen in support. But I know that there's... yes, you can't really see them, but there's two companies here of the Imladris Riders. I think there's also one company of the Spear Cavalry, which I believe are the Imladris Sentinels. I could be wrong, though. That could be the Pikemen. But there is a unit of Spear Cavalry up here as well, so we're not completely outdone in terms of cav, although, to be perfectly honest, we kind of are. I think that covers the length and breadth of it. There's a lot of Rudar units that are hidden here as well. Oh yeah, I've also got Arguay Nanwaith, which is going to be my general's bodyguard. Rudauer, you can't see them, but he's got a company of Rangers, and I think he's got a company of Trollshaw Axe Throwers. Yeah, you can see them on the screen. Well, you can see their unit card in any case on the screen right there. And he's maybe got a unit of Black Wold. So they're very interesting forces. We didn't really have a choice in what we were going to bring in this particular scenario, though that may change in the future. So yeah, the armies are a little bit all over the place, and I kind of like it because you have to make do with something that maybe isn't exactly like A standard, you know what I mean? But in any case, that's going to do it for, at least for what we can see of the defending armies. Let's go ahead and look at the attackers. So here we have the army of DI, which is moving towards the city quickly as possible to confront Lord Starling about his atrocities. So here we've got some Sons of Eorl, some Aelred of Alberg. I believe there's two companies of the Aelred of Alberg. Awen Shield Maidens, a couple companies of Helmingas, Westmark Infantry, two companies of them, Westmark Marshals, two units of the Westmark Marshals as well. Got some more Rohan Cavalry over here, some Aelred of Aldberg, and I think he's got a unit of the Mounted Skirmishers, the Jav Cav Melee Cav Hybrid. They're going to be on the field today. Then we have his ally. This is the army of Lord Muffins, FFA Muffins. It's got some Inuminas Gate Guards here. Couple companies of the Arthurine Pikemen. Certainly going to be a big problem for us as we don't have many pikes to counter them. Got some Wardens of the North, AP Archers, always a nice thing to have on the battlefield. Arthurine Men-at-Arms, 1, 2, 3 companies of the Men-at-Arms. I think he might have some archers around here somewhere. I don't believe so though. So moving on over here, we have the armies of Creed and Rules that are going to be entering a little bit later into the battle. Once DI and Muffin's main force have been engaged and have started to take some casualties, then the literal cavalry is allowed to arrive. But in any case, Rules has got some Arthurine Sergeants here, 1, 2 units of them. There's DI's Rittermark Skirmishers. 4 Nostarain Knights here from FFA Muffins. Creed's got some a few companies of his own, 4 Nostarain Knights. I believe there's about 3 of them there. Quite nicely armored, decent charge value in 9.6x1. 4 Nostarain Knights here under Creed, so a lot of cavalry for the other side. Less infantry though, and less positioning, which is supposed to be the mitigating factor here. Royal Court of House Amlythe as well. Dismounted Knights of Inuminas. I believe Creed has 2 units of the Dismounted Knights of Inuminas. Over here we have some of Rules' army, 2 companies of the United Mounts Company. Great Company, which is where his general is going to be. And the Arthurine Pikemen. Oh, it's worth mentioning that the Royal Court of House Amlythe is where Creed's general is hanging out, so those units are going to be very important. If they get captured, it is a big deal. At least it will be in subsequent battles. In this one, it's not quite as grievous a loss. We have some Knights of Inuminas here as well. So altogether, pretty scary force. The cavalry is definitely going to give us a lot of pause, as will all the pikemen. So we're going to have to find some fairly creative means of conserving our numbers and dealing with DI and Muffin's initial first wave in order to be able to have a viable force moving in to the second round against Rules and his ally Creed. So I hope you guys are excited for this, because it's going to be a hell of a battle, I can tell you right now. And so, as discussed a little bit earlier, the attacking forces are going to be broken up into 2 advancing armies in sort of in accordance with the whims of both of their commanders, one of the Grandmasters of the Order. So the Rohirrim army is going to be moving up this main route here, and DI's objective is going to be to negotiate first. After all, this is a disobedient vassal. This is not a stranger who's invaded his land. They, in the context of the RP, they would know each other. They would have fought together. There are some ties that bind. So DI is going to want to negotiate, and he's going to be supported in this endeavor by the army of Lord Muffins, which you can see in the back here. A little bit farther over this way, and well, aside from the Rohirrim Outriders that you can see there, we have some of the armies of Rules who have just come back from securing the surrounding countryside, marching through some of the villages, establishing small garrisons there to ensure that no more atrocities take place. Lots of Fornost Knights as well from Creed. And they're going to be also thrown over this way as well. And this is going to be kind of the main thrust, I think, of Rules' army. So he's got some footmen here, some more cavalry, lots of cavalry for their side, and then a couple companies, of course, of the more heavier infantry. And they're going to come in from a different route. And these guys are only able to engage once the main body of DI and Muffin's army have been engaged together. So the rebels, on the other hand, their strategy is going to revolve mostly around ambush given their smaller numbers. So a lot of hidden units here in the tree line, and in the event that negotiations go sour, they're going to spring a pretty devastating trap on their liege lord. So let's go ahead, fast forward through this just a little bit. A lot of RP right here. So I'm going to make a quick cut to the end of the negotiations, and I'll see you guys in just a few moments. And so here we are, both aggrieved parties approaching one another in an attempt to talk things out and to spare the lives of their men. I'm going to go ahead, fast forward through this. You can imagine the conversation for yourself between the Grandmaster and his newly appointed rebellious lord. You can actually see up the back there another one of the lordly retinues, Wardens of the North for FFA Muffins, being brought forward. Apparently they're wishing to take part in these negotiations as well. Close at hand, I think I forgot to mention this in the army composition phase. Got some Renai nobles here that are going to serve as the lordly retinue of Thorn. Some of their knight unit here for the rebels, a little bit more lightly armored but more offensively oriented. And they are in reasonably close attendance to the negotiations, just a hop, skip, and a jump. Of course, there's a couple hidden lines of infantry here, waiting in the event that things don't turn out quite the way the Grandmaster hopes that they do. So Muffins has now brought forward his lordly retinue. Speaking to Starling, we can only imagine what's being said between these two. But whatever it happens to be, it seems the negotiations break down. The arrival of the Renai noble seems to make the Sons of Auril think that, or the attackers think that there's some treachery afoot, and the fact that the Renai nobles immediately give chase to their fleeing lordly allies, former allies, I should say, and their retinues, certainly makes the attackers believe that there was some planned treachery here. And the fact that Muffins came all the way up here, far more men than was agreed to meet with Starling's retinue, certainly I'm sure put a bad taste in the mouth of the defenders. They thought they were maybe trying to be strong-armed, and so battle is going to be joined between both sides, as horns call they call the muster, and units begin to move forward and take their place on the line. Over here in the woods, close at hand, there's a couple units of Dagnirum Urchiedin. There's going to be two of my horse archers, and I've brought them into the woods where they're going to be at their best. Very thick wood cover here, not exactly easy to see them, even if you're looking for them. I'm going to bring them up onto the hill to try and get a little bit of extra range that I can use to rain down death upon my enemies. And the Rohirrim are, of course, going to be the target of my Dagnirum. Di sees this, and he's going to immediately storm the woods with his Aelred of Aldburg, sending his cavalry rushing exactly into the place where I want them to be. I'm going to draw back one of my units, keep another one up here on the hill, quite a distance from the Aelred of Aldburg, so that if those horsemen decide that they want to turn off and maybe go after one of my units, the other one will be able to make them pay for it with enfilading fire or rear fire, like what you're seeing here. I think Di realizes that fighting the elves in the woods is not the way that he wants to start this battle. He's going to fall back with his Aelred of Aldburg, leaving a trail of his dead along the way. Popping on over to the other side. Now that the army of Rules, or rather Di and Muffins has been engaged, Creed and Rules now feel free to move forward with their cavalry, and there's a lot of cavalry. We've got a few options here. The High Elves have stationed some of their bowmen in the hills, which aren't going to make it easy for the horsemen to ride them down. Got some heavy knights over here as well. Probably one of the best units that the rebels have on the field. Another one of the lordly retinues here of Goddess Nimhain. And so far, the southern or rather the northern attacking armies are content to take their time and wait for an opportunity and see what it is exactly that their allies decide to do. So following DI's lead, it seems that Muffins is going to follow suit and head towards the tree line here. This is where my horse archers are still lying in wait. I've only got one unit over here. I've decided to break another one off, split up my forces a little bit, and send... What do we got here? I think this is my second company of horse archers. Yes, indeed. I'm going to send them to the aid of my allies. Up here in the north, there's a lot of enemy cavalry out there, and they're going to need every hand they can get to try and push them back. This is a little bit dangerous, though. Up here, in a great little overwatch position, Wardens of the North raining down death and destruction upon the rebellious elves. And the Heru Hatal are going to get taken in the rear by some of that accurate bow fire. And a few of them are going to fall, but every dead Heru Hatal is a loss dearly felt, as these are some of the best units that we have to offer. But luckily their fixation on them is going to allow my Dagnirum Urchiedin to get by relatively unscathed. Now, if those units were shooting at them the entire time, they might have shredded half the unit, so I suppose I should be thanking my lucky stars that they decided to go after the Heru Hatal instead, as it did spare my men quite a lot of damage, but still, a fifth of that unit is going to be shot down in the retreat, so it certainly wasn't without any cost. Let's see what we have going on up here. I think this is where the Imladris mounted bows are going to be hiding, somewhere up here. Yes, here they are, the Imladris Riders, 2 companies up, you can see the flags. They're just waiting for any cavalry that thinks themselves secure, and that are going to try and pass through the hills, around our positions, and potentially try and come in through a back door into the village. Those Imladris units are going to be sitting there waiting for them. And actually, you can see them in the back here. My Dagnirum are going to join them up there on the hill as well. Over this way, down in the woods, my forces have been leading the armies of DI and Muffins on a merry chase, cycling back and forth, a tactic that I do like to employ quite a lot because I find it to be very effective, especially against people who aren't paying attention. Certainly not going to be the case, however, with my enemies. They are more than on their game today, and a few of my Dagnirum Urchiedin are going to fall. But I'm just going to keep cycling them back out, try and get a volley off before I immediately retreat and fall back, hoping to maybe draw some of their units out of position, and at the very least, frustrate my opponent into making a mistake, which is an extremely useful way to use your horse archers. Now up here on the hill, the Arthedain and Rohirrim armies are going to move in force, which is exactly what they want to do to try and counter my particular tactic with my horse archers, trying to draw elements of the army out, try and strike where they're weakest. But if they're all together and all supporting one another, then I'm not going to be able to get much use out of my horse archers, especially not with this cloud of Band of Brass archers you can see forming the vanguard of the Arnorian army's approach. Let's pop up here, see how things are going. I think I managed to get a few shots off with my Dagnirum Urchiedin. Maybe claim the lives of a few of these Fornostarine units, but they're heavily armored, they're heavily shielded. I probably wasn't going to accomplish too much before they drove me off the hill. But at the very least, I didn't just let them take it. Now Creed's going to take the ensemble of his heavy knights, drive them over this hill. I think he might be trying to suss out maybe other units in the woods, and he's certainly going to succeed in that. Imladris Riders here, opening fire on the knights, and they're going to be driven back in a panic, forced to flee. Not really too sure where those elves are on the tree line. I'm actually going to bring my Dagnirum Urchiedin around here as well to try and use this natural choke point to deal some pretty substantial damage to our enemies as they begin to move through the hills. In a fairly broken advance, I might say. This is definitely propitious territory for horse archers. Oh man, those poor Dunedain peacekeepers, they don't even have their shield on that side. getting raked by volley after volley from those very deadly and very accurate Elven Horse Archers. Oh man, Rules is going to try and put them into shield wall so they can better defend themselves. But many of them are going to, as a result, turn their back to the Horse Archers and immediately be cut down. And this unit of very elite Dunite infantry is quite heavily reduced at this point, nearly down to about half strength. More Arthedain forces continue to pour through the hills. A couple companies up here of the Arthedain marksmen. That's certainly going to make life difficult for the Imladris riders up there. Not going to be able to just fire down with impunity, and they're already beginning to lay down some counter volleys. Luckily, the Imladris Horse Archers are quite sturdy and able to stand up to that kind of thing. My Horse Archers are nearby, a little bit farther back, and I'm going to try and focus down the pike units, because we don't have a lot of pikes. Maybe we have like 2 units of the Redinine pikes, so the pikes for us are going to be a big problem. There's a lot of problematic elements of the superior attacking forces that we're going to struggle to deal with, namely the cavalry, and obviously pikes are another one. So we're just trying to whittle away at some of the most important elements of their army whenever the opportunity presents itself. Let's see what we got going on over here. It looks like some Fornoster Rain Knights have been brought very, very close. I didn't actually see this at the time, or I would have tried to engage them with my Rachbin Amon Lank, who would have had a field day fighting the Fornoster Rain Knights. They're Spear Cavalry, they've got a lot of melee defense. They would have cut these guys down to size, although of course there is the small matter of the Wardens of the North up here, Lord Muffin's personal retinue. And as a result of bow fire from up there from the Noriternal Warriors, we're being protected by some Eldar Tar Spearmen, Creed's Cavalry is going to be driven back again. So we're the fairly broken advance of our opponents. We've managed to stymie their efforts to take strong positions almost at every turn, and as a result, we've actually pulled ahead by 4%. So far, so good for the rebels. Let's pop back over to this end. You can see my Dagnerim have led the I want to call them the defenders since they're defending the Order's integrity, but they're definitely not the defenders in this battle. Let's say I'll just call them the Order's forces. They're leading the Order's forces on a merry chase, firing back at the spearmen and at the pikemen whenever they have an opportunity to do so. Yeah, I'm taking a few shots at the pikemen there. Again, public enemy number 1 is definitely the pikemen. And a big cloud of them like this with no shields is really hard to miss. Now the Arthedain archers are going to return fire. And I'm not going to be quick enough to get out of the way. So my Dagnerim again going to take another shot there. I'll leave a few more of their comrades dead behind them. Oh, well, actually, surprisingly, none of them died that time. Which is a lucky thing. DI appears to be quite tired of my cavalry, so he's going to move forward in force. Got some Rittermark skirmishers here. 2 companies of the Raid of Waldburg. One of them we'll recognize a little bit earlier, quite battle-scarred, down from 77 to 59. A good deal of them died on their fairly ill-advised pursuit into the woods after my Horse Archers. And this is where I make a bit of a mistake. I underestimated just how swift the Rohirrim cavalry could be. And as a result, my Dagnerim are going to be a little bit closer than what I want them to be. The Rittermark skirmishers are actually within range at this point. So down come the volleys of javelins, claiming the lives of a few of my bowmen. And this very column-shaped formation probably isn't helping. It's definitely presenting an easy target for those Rohirrim skirmishers who are very fast. And you can see them getting closer and closer as my Horse Archers try to get away. But the casualties are starting to mount. They no longer can fire back with impunity. They're having to tank javelin shots. It's really ugly for them so far. Up here on the ridge, you can see some of the Imladris cavalry mounting an aborted charge against the Banderbrass archers as much of the Arthedain cavalry was moving forward. Now you can see Rules and Creed with hundreds of their cavalrymen going over this ridge in force and barreling down against our Horse Archer units. Now, the Elven Horse Archer units are quite good. Even in close quarters against Lancers, they'll do pretty well. But there's just far too many of them. They would ultimately be swamped and surrounded, and the Age Reforged, I'm sure, would meet the same fate if they decide to stick around here. So now the Arthedain cavalry moving in force through these woods, making sure we don't have any more hidden surprises. Company of Dunedain Mounted Company swinging wide around that forested area. Now our horse archers have been driven out into the open, where they can more easily be cornered and captured or destroyed. Arthedain sergeants mounting a frontal charge here against my Dagnerim. Bit of a micro mistake here on my part. I'm actually going to let them take that charge, which is a big mistake. However, the high melee defense of my Dagnerim is going to serve them in good stead here. The Arthedain sergeants, not exactly the most powerful charge in 0.96.1. I believe they only have about 5 extra charge bonus. So my Dagnerim are actually going to start to win that fight, believe it or not, and cut down a number of those sergeants. But with this flanking unit of Dunedain Mounted Company moving in to contest the ground, I'm going to have to pull them back. The Modest Rider is going to end up getting caught there in my stead. I feel kind of bad about this. I pulled my ally into a fight that he probably didn't want to be in. Dunedain Mounted Company getting caught out by the Imladra Sentinels. The Imladra Sentinels are going to have no problem beating down these Lancers. But more and more Arthedain cavalry move in. It's going to become very clear that the elves are thoroughly outmatched, individually skilled though they may be. Now I've fallen back to this tree line over here with my Dagnerim. I'm going to continue to kite here, especially against the Dunedain Mounted Company. They're going to get a nice charge into the rear of my horse archers. I'm going to notice it at the last moment, pull them out there before it becomes an absolute disaster, but I'm still going to lose a decent amount of my horse archers in that retreat, about 10 of them right there. And they're going to drive me even farther out of position. Imladra Sentinels here, mounting one final charge against these Lancers. Elven and human cavalry colliding. The Imladra Sentinels are spear cavalry, very, very skilled and well armored. But ultimately, there's just far too many of the human cavalrymen, and they're going to be surrounded. And this might just be where they die. I don't think there's any way to get out of here and preserve any of that unit. Their retreat has almost been entirely cut off. So the Sentinels are going to fight pretty well to the end. Damn, that's a good fight, though. That's a proper scrap. Elven units outnumbered and surrounded. Not willing to give any ground, though. Dying in service to their lord. There can be no higher honor. And there we have it. Let's see what's going on over on this end. It seems like the Knights of Inuminas have committed the oldest faux pas in the book, charging with their important heavy cavalry into the front of spear units who are braced and ready for them. Some of the knights aren't going to manage to penetrate that formation. However, many of them are also going to die in the retreat, and Rules is going to pay quite dearly for that loss. Look at this. They're actually shaken, almost at the point of wavering. Now, if the Age Reforged had been a little bit more on point there, they could have surrounded and destroyed that unit, but unfortunately, that was not the case. Over here, speaking of cavalry, I broke the hidden tree line cover with my Rechbin on Lank, and I walked right into a big stupid trap. Something that should have been obvious to me, but yeah, I definitely made the mistake here, bringing my Rechbin out. There's a little bit of a scrap here between some infantry, some of the Black Wolds, and the Hathali Tower, squaring off against some Arthedain men-at-arms. They were obviously surrounded and destroyed, and you're seeing the result of that there. Arthedain forces, however, have managed to take the ridge, and this is very, very bad. Now, as my Rechbin managed to get away from the Wardens of the North, they're also getting shot by the Bandabrass archers. Bit of a crossfire here. My Rechbin are going to suffer catastrophic casualties. I'm not going to be able to get them back in time. Very, very unfortunate for me. But I'm going to lose the majority of that unit. But they will come back, and we will see them do some important stuff. Speaking of important stuff, though, big fight over here. Pike-on-pike action between Rudour and the forces of FFA Muffins. Rohan supporting them as well. They've come all the way around here They've driven my horse archers pretty well to the brink of extinction. You can see them over here, 32 men in the unit. These horse archers out of ammunition. They did their best. They did their very best. But now they are uniquely well situated to pose a threat to the rear of the Rohirrim and the Arthedain warriors as they advance into the township that they intend to wrest from control of the rebellious Lord Starling. A couple lines of infantry here cresting the ridge as the High Elves begin to take position. But this is going to be a case of, I suppose you could call it being too big for your boots. Oh, wow, it's a lot of routing there from the Arthedain pikemen. There's a very small amount of troops to hold a very wide position. And the Eldaritar are going to be swiftly overwhelmed if they're not careful. They're dangerously isolated and exposed here, with no additional reinforcements nearby, and none of them seem to be on their way aside from an additional unit here of the Hrungnite pikemen, who are certainly taking their time about it. Eldaritar squaring off against men-at-arms. The tired men-at-arms, however, not doing quite so well against the fresh elven troops, but with the addition of some Westmark marshals, I think we can start to see things turn around pretty quickly. Those routing pikemen are going to rout straight into the waiting arms of the Dunman Spearmen. And up here, got a unit of Hrungnite Rangers as well. Fairly well situated to rain down death upon the Rohirrim. And I think DI realizes just how vulnerable he is. He's going to start to send up some more of his closest infantry up to the ridge line and try and drive out the Rudauer forces. Brandbrass Archer is going to be uniquely useful in that regard as well. Troll Slayers nearby. And this situation is rapidly becoming critical for the rebels. There's really not enough forces here that they can use to try and hold this line for any particularly great length of time. The Eldaritar are doing not too poorly, and have actually managed to turn the tide against the marshals, mostly by means of envelopment. And I'm bringing in some Dagnirim, but once the Rohirrim start to commit, there's not going to be a lot that I'm going to be able to do. And unfortunately, a little bit of a micro mistake here. I left my Dagnirim out in the open for far too long, and now the jig is up. The Rohirrim see what I'm about. Rittermark Skirmishers being brought forward, along with the Aelwyn Shield Maidens. I wanted to try and at least kill half the unit here. Unfortunately, my charge is going to be a little bit anemic. They're going to get off a last-minute volley. The Dunedain Troll Slayer is going to hit them from the flank, and the Skirmishers are going to toss their volleys in there as well, and that unit is going to get completely obliterated. That's like the worst situation I could have put those Dagnirim in. Big mistake on my part. It's just a waste of 43 cavalrymen that could potentially be very useful, especially for a hammer and anvil strike up here. Would have been a good place for them to be. And the war marches on. The Eldaritar are being swamped as the Westmark marshals start to pull through their formation. Not really anything they can do about it without any reinforcing units in close attendance. But finally, reinforcements have arrived. Eldarin Haru Quinga and some Eldar Makar light infantry and a second line of Hrungnite pikemen have been brought forward to try and counter this menace. And there goes Muffin's general for whatever reason. Let's pop over there. For whatever reason, he came down off the hill and found himself swamped by a unit of Gwaithir Rockdor. Cut down a good deal of that unit. Captured his general. Even the four Nostarain Knights were not able to prevent these heavily armored, highly trained, and very, very skilled elven cavalrymen from dealing a death blow to their army. That's going to be the end of their general. Up here, the Black Wolves from Rudauer got shot to death, unfortunately. Bandit Archers, I think, are out of ammunition, but are now being brought down to just generally be a pain, and not wanting to... I wouldn't want this to be the tiny snowflake that starts an avalanche and gets our enemies a foothold on our eastern wing when we've done so well at holding it, and it is still very tenuous. There's a lot of holes and gaps in our line. I'm going to commit my Hethley Tower, and I'm going to defend their rear with some Thandra Mierin. We're going to wipe out this Hobbit menace once and for all. Meanwhile, over here, Hrungnite pikemen have been fierce and stalwart in holding this position, but I think now with more and more reinforcements pouring in, it's only a matter of time before this pike wall begins to fall apart. Westmark marshals have come in from behind them. Light infantry here fighting against the marshals, surrounding units being surrounded in turn by other reinforcements being brought forward. Eldaritar, they've held out very well against a lot of different infantry, but now I think that the game is up. Cavalry being brought in behind them is going to be enough to make them waver and begin to flee, and the Eldar Makar are going to be dangerously isolated in turn. Troll Slayers moving forward. Ooh, getting a little bit close to the Edmor's Troll Hunters here. We could see them destroyed. I don't think Muffins really wants them to be there, so he's going to try and fall back as quickly as possible. And another line of defense has been set up here by Rudauer and some small elements of one of the High Elven armies. Don't know what happened to these Fremenite nobles. Last time we saw them, they were looking very, very good. But now, not quite so much. Aerod of Alberg thundering down from the hills against the Edmor's Trollhunters. Bit of a mistake here, I think, on the part of Thorn. Being too aggressive with a very important unit that didn't have enough support to really keep it safe. Thorn moving forward now with a company of Renanine pikemen, and that's going to be enough to put the fear of Eru into the Rohirrim Riders, and they're going to begin to fall back. Edmor's Trollhunters are safe for the time being. Eldarin and Wehedu Quinga opening fire at the retreating Rohirrim, trying to exact as high a price for their aggressive move against the Trollhunters as possible. Let's see what we got going on the other side. Now Creed and Rules' army are really beginning to engage in earnest. A lot of Bannerbrass archers being brought up here, and this is definitely a problem. Orange Phaedon is making a huge mistake here by keeping the Eldar Itar on the front lines when they have that many bowmen in such a good position. There's no reason to waste a unit like this. It's a completely foolish waste of resources. At the very least, the Eldarin Wehedu Hatal could be spread out to try and defend them with their shields, and the second company could be brought forward. And this company is just sitting here dying. There's really no reason to waste these units like this. So yeah, definitely a big mistake there on the part of Phaedon. We're already outnumbered. We can't afford to throw away lives like this by simply being careless. So big, as I said, bit of an error right there. Let's see what we got over here. More and more cavalry. It looks like we've been mostly driven from the heights. I think most of the Elven cavalry is pretty well gone. There's some Eldar Quinga up here in a pretty good position. Very easily able to fall back down the hill, escape some of the cavalry, maybe draw them into an ambush down here, so it's a good place for them to be. Popping over to this side, though. Seems like things have started to turn against the rebels, as they've been driven out of their advanced positions, and now the way into the village is very much clear. Dunman spears have been destroyed. Up here, it seems like the Numinos Gate Guards have finished off the Rudauer Rangers, so we'll hear no more from them. Yeah, I guess that's the end of them right there, or at least one of the spear units, possibly. And now the attackers are in control of the heights, and they're in control of one of the major thoroughfares into the town. Hermanite pikemen taking a big hit from the Eowyn Shield Maidens. Another volley there. Edmor's Trollhunters could be used to great effect here to maybe put some counter volleys into the Eowyn Shield Maidens. Thorn's going to waste no time in moving forward with the Serenadine pikemen. They're going to do very well indeed against the Westmark Infantry. The Westmark Infantry don't really have an answer to the massive range disparity between these a sword and board unit and a pike unit. So unless they're going to try and flank, or maybe at least hold them in place for the cavalry to come around, maybe through some of these big gaps here, then those Westmark Infantry are basically being thrown under the bus. Ah, now I see DI's plan. I'll flank them with some infantry. These units are going to come under fire from the Edmor's Trollhunters, however. I don't think they're going to be able to do critical damage onto these Westmark Infantry units before they're able to outflank the Renanine pikemen, or perhaps even worse, tie down the Edmor's Trollhunters in close quarters. Yeah, this is a tough decision. I mean, he could fall back here, but then of course the Renanine pikemen would just be abandoned to their doom. And he can try and save the Trollhunters, or he can just stick it out and try and do as much damage as possible. Now, if you're looking at this here, the attackers have actually pulled things back. Now they're 10% ahead. So So we can't afford to be too careless here, but we also need to kill as many of them as possible, as rapidly as possible, to try and even the odds. Troll Axe Thrower is being brought forward now. Probably, I would say this is throwing good money after bad at this point. If you take a look up here, there's actually, I think they're starting to move some archers up onto the hill, or at least they do at some point. And because they have control of these heights, it makes it very easy for them to fire downwards into the Troll Axe Throwers, who really don't have any defense against arrows. Let's see what we got going on over here. Looks like there were some high elven contingents hiding up there in the woods, some Eldar Makar, a very large amount of them, about 2 units I'd say. They've been driven off the heights, probably as a result of some of the Fornoster Rain Knights. They're trying to pressure them and then open up another point of access into the township as the attackers begin to tighten the noose around the rebels. So we got going on over here. Eldar Itar Spearmen, yeah, finally being drawn back. Just heavy damage here. It was foolish to leave these units as far forward, I think, as Goddess Nimhain did. They definitely needed to be back out of harm's way. We have units that we could use to soak up that arrow fire. One of them is right here. Eldar and Hedu Hatal are going to stand up to bowfire from the Elidras, from the Bandit Brass Archers for basically ever. I've got my archers nearby, my general's bodyguard, my royal retinue, some Nora Eterno warriors as well. Yeah, it just seems like such a waste of life. In any case, popping back over here. Arthurian men-at-arms fighting against the Troll Hunters. Troll Hunters seem to be winning, probably because of the advanced state of fatigue on many of these Arthurian units. They're going to turn around and charge into the rear of the Heredinite pikemen, who are absolutely massacring the Rohirrim. It's not even a contest. The high damage and the high range of those pike units is going to make them incredibly difficult to break down from the front. Some offense is doing a good thing here by surrounding them. These exhausted units are going to suffer some pretty heavy penalties, and this unit here of Heredinite pikemen is still fresh. So this is as uphill of a fight as you can get without fighting an enemy on top of a mountain. Air of Allbird being brought to bear to try and make it through this obstacle, and this has just really made them pay in a big way. They're still ahead of us by, I think, by 12% at this point, but these Heredinite pikemen have evened out the infantry fight in a way that we just did not look for. Troll Hunters have now been broken. Unfortunate to see, but that's how it's got to be. A lot of ranged units have been brought to bear. DI trying to get down here some of his cavalry, disrupt our defense, but I think we were a little bit more numerous than what he was expecting. Oh man, those poor Troll Axe Throwers. Look at the beating they took. Thorin was far too aggressive with some of these more important missile units, which could potentially have a game-changing effect. So, yeah, definitely not something that you want to be reckless with when you're working with limited resources. Diaz cavalry, however, flew far too close to the sun, and as a result are being broken very quickly. Aelred of Allenberg here. I think they're trying to go after... Ah, yes, they were trying to go after my Megali Aaron. Managed to kill a few of them, but I used the momentum to draw them onto the spears of my Thandrim. Now we've got some Heru Quinga. I know there's such nasty units down in the town center. We're using them to fire into the retreating Rohirrim so that they never, ever feel safe. There's no opportunity for rest or respite for the Rohirrim. They are constantly under pressure, getting as much done as they can. A nice charge here into the Eldar Quinga. But I'm going to move forward with what remains of my own unit of Spear Cavalry, and that's going to be too much for the Aelred of Allenberg to bear. They're going to begin to break as my Thandrimier move in for a surround. More of this Rohirrim cavalry is going to begin to break. And we're going to start to bring things back just a little bit. A beautiful counterattack here by the Eldar with renewed vigor after their successes down there in the Dell. And the Westmark infantry are going to be hard-pressed to hold back all these elves. The only big problem I can see here is that they weren't exactly spaced out terribly well. I think not Orange Phaedon. Goddess Nimhain is going to recognize that. He's going to pull off that unit of Eldar Makar and send them to the aid of the Heredinite pikemen, who are still fighting and still reasonably healthy. Now they've cut down some Illuminos gate guards. I think you guys are starting to see why we removed the locked morale in the Herendine pikemen, huh? Because they can do things like this. Just incredible feats of courage and endurance. Over here are starting to win, I think, just through sheer numbers, but now that the elves have arrived on scene, they have retaken control of this major thoroughfare. And the forces of Rohan and most of FFA Muffin's retinue have been completely annihilated. DI, of course, has still held on to his personal bodyguard, but it's not going to be enough to beat the quite substantial forces arrayed against him in this southeastern section of the battlefield. And now the rebels have control once again. They shifted a lot of their might over here, and it's paid off for them quite well. Taking a look over here, my Ruckman Alman Lank got a nice rear charge against the Westmark infantry. Yeah, things are starting to turn around here in a pretty big way for us. Elsewhere, Creed and Rules have been taking their time, trying to use up as much of their archery ammunition as possible, soften up our forces. And now, finally, the right units have been brought to bear on the front lines. And the Eldorni Hedu Hatal are going to stand tall and firm. And this is going to be a tough thing for the Arthurian forces to break through. Hedu Hatal, despite being spear units and despite having that spear malice, I need to stop calling it a malice. That's just a weird French calque that Kuro does. Penalty. The spear penalty is not going to stop them from being an absolute powerhouse in melee, as befits the Noldor. Let's be honest. Doesn't matter what they hit you with, it's still going to hurt. You see, I brought up some reserves here. Another line in case things start to turn ahead of us. A lot of these units are actually going to be hidden, so they're going to be free to stay in position and be unmolested by the Helmingas up there on the ridge. Looks like these Helmingas have started to run out of ammunition in any case. But they're firing down into the rear of our advancing forces. And it's starting to become a problem. Looks like a lot of the victorious rebels were trying to chase the Dunai Troll Slayers up the hill. But now that they've abandoned that approach, the Troll Slayers are in a pretty decent spot to repay the favor in kind. Start to lay down some withering volleys of javelins into the rebellious infantry below. Eldor Makar charging up the hill there. Well, they want to get a piece of those Troll Slayers, but if they go up there unaided, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Down here in the Dell, Westmark Marshals finally broken. And now the rebels can definitively claim a victory in the southeast. Supporting bow fire from the Elder Endlar Quing on the ground. Gonna force the Helmingas down off the heights. This other company here is gonna fire back. I wonder what they're going after. I would definitely go after the Trollshaw Axe throwers. Let's see what's happening over on this side. The first wave of Rules and Creed's infantry. Significantly less numerous, I would say, than the forces in the southeast, but far more elite. I say that as there's hobbits charging on the hill here, but remember that they have Dunedain, they have peacekeepers, and they've got the dismounted knights of Anuminas. Elder Inway, for them this is nothing they haven't seen a million times before. These are the Noldor that fought dragons. Are they going to hold their ground unflinchingly in the face of this advance? And now the butchery begins as the Noldor begin to impale their enemies. More are on the way, however. It might take more than even the Noldor's strength to hold back 2 units of Knights of Anuminas and some fairly numerous companies here of hobbits as well. Arthurian marksmen, well situated up on the hill, laying down the pain as they focus the Eldarin Hedu Quinga. Some of the cavalry from Rules and Creeds launching a simultaneous assault against the undefended right wing of the rebellious infantry in the center. Dunai Mounted Company charging against the Heru Quinga. Heru Quinga are not going to take that lion down, however. They're going to claim at least a handful of the Dunai Mounted warriors' lives as they begin to fall back. Royal Court of House Amlath have now been brought forward, and this is kind of the situation that we've been fearing all along. We don't have anything left to really defend our right wing. We've come in a lot in the southeast, which we're now able to funnel backwards because we've defeated so much of our enemies. But there's still a fair amount left here. A couple companies of the Helmingas, Dunai Trollslayers as well, destroying a unit of Eldar Makar, carelessly thrown away. So we can't immediately funnel all of our forces where we need them to be. More cavalry assaults over here. Creed has come in from the west, down out of the hills, with 4 Nosterane Knights. The Elven Knights are trying to hold back this tide, but there's just so much of the cavalry spilling through that we can't stop them all. Now they're going to be able to potentially sandwich the forces that we have so carefully conserved in the center here, and it's gonna fall to my elves in the township proper to try and hold back the tide. But all of my missile units bearing down on the front line here in the center, trying to do as much damage to the lightly armored troops as I can, and then I saw this. And Rules is trying to assassinate my general, but luckily my general's not going to get caught up in this at all. They will take down his standard bearer, I believe. But the mounted company are going to come up against some of the best that the elves have to offer. I'm moving in with some Hathali Tower as well. A little bit of support from our brothers across the way, the Eldar Quinga, firing a volley or two, and the Dunai Mounted Company are going to break and flee in the face of elven reinforcements and the sheer ferocity of the Ariagwe Nanwaith. Now I'm going to begin to shift these troops to the other side, because I'm pretty sure... Yes, another wave. An exhausted and outnumbered wave. Not quite so fearsome as the previous ones, but another wave nonetheless of the Order's infantry, barreling down this hill, trying to break the rebels' positions. Some Mingas are going to have a hard time of it, although with the help of the Dunai Trollslayers, I'm sure they will do very well. Let's see what's going on elsewhere. Now, I've brought over a unit of my Thandrimiaran to try and secure this wing. There's only a couple potential thoroughfares for the cavalry to come through, so having them centrally like this is very useful, because I can quickly shift them to where I need them to be. Even the mere presence of the spearmen is sometimes enough to dissuade any prospective cavalry assaults. Eldarin Wehedu Quinga from Phaidon doing their best. They're just getting pummeled by the superior positioning and numbers of the Arthurine marksmen up there on the hill. There's not going to be too much that they can do. The Noldor are holding, although the right wing has begun to crumble. And now some of the Dunai Knights of Inuminas have managed to encircle the Eldarin Wehedu Hatal, and the left as well is in danger of falling. The Noldor seem pretty nonplussed about the whole affair. They'll fight through just about anything. Again, this is just a walk in the park for them. Now the Helmingas have come down the hill, but found themselves swiftly ambushed by some hidden Wood Elven reserves, and as well as the Eldar Makaran support. And they're going to break almost immediately upon contact. DI trying to come forward to support that push with his Sons of Eorl and his general as well. Maybe keep them in the fight for a bit longer. Unfortunately, too late. And there goes one of the Elven generals, cut down as he tried to hammer an anvil into the Dunai Knights who were surrounding his Eldarin Wehedu Hatal. Let's see what we got here. Eldarin, this would be the Eldar Makar looking to surround and cut off the Dunai Trollslayers. That would be a big loss indeed. This is one of the few units that Muffins has left in his army, and it's certainly one of his best. I'm going to move as well with some of my Hathali Tower, and so is Thorn, to try and intercept them. But those Trollslayers are quite swift. A lot of our units are starting to get a little bit tired, and they certainly had a head start on us. Savage Volley there with the throwing axe is going to claim the lives of a few of the Trollslayers. I don't think they're going to have the opportunity of a second, though. And once they manage to make it across those stakes, they're basically home free. Got some mounted company here, and other cavalry units in support that would be a big problem for our infantry. Speaking of the mountain company, charging into my archers, I'm going to open up with a close range volley. They come in with my Thandrimiaran, and they will get a charge off onto my Thierny Tower. It's going to hurt, not as much I think as Rules needed it to. or rather Creed. And he's going to be driven back with fairly heavy losses by Mythandra and again, central positions make it very, very useful logistically to shuffle your troops from one crisis area to another. Mounted Company still fleeing. I'm going to make sure that they stay gone with Mythandra Mierin. And over here in the center, looks like the Eldarinwe Heduquinga have been brought to bear to try and shore up that failing Elven right wing. On the left, though, things are still looking as dire as ever, but the Eldarinwe Heduhatal are holding their ground. And they've inflicted some serious damage. Look at all these like dead hobbits and dead men-at-arms and pikemen. I think I've got my Yariagwe Nanwe trying to fire into the rear of the dismounted Knights of Inuminas, try and shave off some of their HP. The high damage of the Yariagwe Nanwe, coupled with the lack of shield value that these units get from the rear, might be enough to do a significant amount of damage to them. It looks like I'm turning them around maybe to go after the Sons of Eorl. More cavalry reinforcements have been brought in by Creed. And DI's personal retinue is going to spearhead this assault. Hetheli Tower and Megalierin are going to be standing in their way alongside with some Eldar Makar. And these cavalry are going to find themselves thoroughly overmatched in close quarters. Sons of Eorl getting shot down. I believe that's from both my Thierny Tower and my General's Bodyguard. Trying to take advantage of the lightly armored, significantly more lightly armored at the very least compared to certain other units like Knights of Inuminas. Lightly armored nature of these Sons of Eorl. Gothelim Einiauer in danger of getting charged from the rear. Hopefully Phaedon sees it and turns around. Doesn't look like he's gonna. And some of Starling's retinue are gonna get skewered on the ends of those lances. They're going to be able to escape. Arthedain Sergeants over here, mounting a charge against the Gothelim Einiauer. That's going to go significantly less well. Yeah, those heavily armored, well-trained archers with their high melee defense are going to tank that no problem. And the Arthedain Sergeants are going to be in a bit of a pickle here. Some Eldaritar coming in from the rear. 2 companies of them for a total of about 70. They managed to make contact with the Arthedain Sergeants. That's going to be game over for another cavalry unit. Up here, speaking of cavalry, it looks like Creed has been forced to draw back again. Mount another downhill charge. Looks like Rudauer is going to be the one to take up point next, supported by the High Elves. What do I got down here? Got a hidden company of Megalierin that we could use to ambush these units, as well as a very healthy company of Hetheli Tower. Definitely my ace in the hole at this late point in the battle. And Creed is going to move down into the Dell with his Fornost Knights. I think he's going after some of my Hetheli Tower that I had over here supporting the Gothelim Einiauer. There go the Arthedain Sergeants. And then we're going to spring our ambush into action. And I don't think he's going to see it coming. He's got Elven Infantry in his rear. Pikes cutting off his retreat, as well as some Trollshot Axe Throwers, preventing any reinforcements from getting down here to save him and open up any avenues of escape. Megalierin going to make contact with them. Eldaritar and Hetheli Tower are going to close the noose. And the Fornost Knights are going to find themselves dismayed and bewildered and assaulted on all sides. And they're going to try and retreat, but they're going to run smack into a company of Eldar Makar who was waiting for them. And this is going to be a successful ambush. And if we look at the percentages, they have evened out. Very, very much so. In fact, that nasty charge in the back there actually changed the percentages, but for a while, the rebels had pulled it back. Mounted Company flattening a good deal as Eldar Makar. However, Creed's Fornost Knights, taken in unawares and assaulted on all sides, are going to be forced to flee, many of them breaking and running for their lives, along with Rules' reinforcing unit of Mounted Company. It's a fair amount of cavalry. They may come back. There's still a decent amount of them left over. Ooh, another unit of sergeants charging downhill here. Ooh, I think they're going to charge accidentally headlong into a unit of Harenai pikemen. That's going to go about exactly as well as you'd expect it to, and I think now it's safe to claim victory, aside from small handfuls here of order forces in the form of DI's few remaining Sons of Eorl still remaining. I think it's safe for the rebels to finally claim a definitive victory in the south. In the north, it's not going so well. Heduhatal are being crushed. They've put up an excellent fight so far. They've killed hundreds of the lighter infantry and dozens of the heavy elites. However, there are still too few elves to hold the line, and now the Order forces are into the township proper. But this is not going to be the end. Not at all. Still a heavy, very healthy, I should say, not heavy, company of Yariagwe Nanweth still on standby. A lot of infantry nearby as well. Looks like they're trying to pursue some of the mounted company. I had a unit of Thurney Tower that charged out here against the Helmingas, but they, realizing the position that they're in, they're going to fall back. My Thandrimi out in here, preventing any reinforcements from this end from coming in, and preventing our center from falling apart completely. And the new 9 Troll Slayers are going to try and come in from behind those Thandrimi out in. It's going to be ugly, but now Rules has revealed his trump card, the Grey Company. And they're shredding our Thurney Tower. Honestly, I think the Grey Company were a little bit overkill in this scenario, but it was a test scenario. Grim worked hard on it, so, you know, can't complain too much. But yeah, definitely overkill with all the other things we had to deal with. But nonetheless, they are here, and they are making their presence known. As my Thurney Tower get cut down. Troll Slayers coming in to finish them off. And over here, some Eldaritar, along with some of my Megaliedin, who have fought in multiple engagements all across, from the east to the southeast. Fought all across the battlefield, and now are here beating back the Dunedain Peacekeepers. Eldaritar beaten down the advancing Arthedain infantry, with some help from the Eldar Quinga, of course, but I don't think it's necessary to have both of the Eldar Quinga over here. I think we needed the larger company to be over helping us deal with the Grey Company, because the Grey Company are just shredding us. Yeah, take a look at this. Yeah, my Thandrimi Eren, who I kept healthy for so long, just getting absolutely butchered by the enfilading fire from those mounted rangers, and there's not a lot that I can really do about it, unfortunately. Again, big mistake, I think, on the part of Nimhain. He needed to have his archers over here. He needed to be a little bit more cognizant, I guess, read the field a bit better, and then bring those units, those archer units over to help me out, because I had no more archer ammunition left at all anywhere. All is not lost, however. My Yariagwe Nanwaith coming to the rescue, and the Nine Troll Slayers are going to find themselves thoroughly overmatched. The Nanwaith have about 8 or so armor, so they'll stand up to that ranger fire a little bit, but it is still really going to hurt. Yeah, my poor Nanwaith just getting shredded. Yeah, I was definitely not happy about this. I would restate it one more time. I think the Grey Company in this scenario was a bit overkill and kind of threw off the balance of the scenario in a really big way. But, you know, they only have so much, so they won't be able to kill us all. Hopefully. Maybe. In any case, the Troll Slayers have been cut down. That'll free up a little bit of infantry for me to move over and support what remains of my poor Thandrimi Eren. And that's going to be it. The Eldar and Mihadu Hatal slain to a man, but look at their legacy. Hundreds of dead hobbits, a lot of dead Dunedain knights, many men-at-arms from Arthedain. Ultimately, they weren't able to kill them all, but they bought us so much time to deal with other elements of the Order's armies. Let's see here. Broken the Dunedain in the center. Now we're coming in from the rear with a number of our elves against the Band of Brass Archers here in the... I think there's some Arthedain marksmen mixed in there as well. And they're being absolutely butchered. So now it's time to shift some of these Elven Archers over to the other end and help us deal with that pesky Grey Company. That's like one of the biggest problems that we have still remaining, is the Grey Company. They have killed some of my strongest remaining units. They basically shredded 3 units unto themselves, and there was nothing I could do about it. So we need reinforcements desperately on our right wing if we're going to be able to hold. You can see the dismounted Knights of Inuminas now moving in. Another wave of infantry, some hobbits that obviously came back from routing. really know what else Rules has left at this point. Got some Eldar Quingo over here. Yeah, I think both sides are pretty well on their last legs at this point. The Grey Company, though, still with ammunition. Decent amount of cavalry left for the Order's forces. Still, this could go any way. It's really going to come down to how well we manage the Grey Company, I think. Now, on that important note, I'm going to take my small little commando unit of Hethely Tower, try and run them after the Grey Company. Look for some opportunities here to maybe try and take out one of the generals. Maybe kill Rules' general. That would be amazing. Catch the Grey Company in close quarters for any length of time, and my Hethely Tower will be able to cut them down very quickly. Over here in the center, dismounted Knights of Inuminas overrunning my position. The Yariagwe Inanweth doing their best to hold back the tide. I've got some reinforcements coming in here as well. Megalierin coming in from the rear of these Hobbitry in arms. Gonna rout them almost immediately, cutting off some of Rules' much-needed reinforcements. My Hethely Tower up here as well, doing the same thing to the other company of Hobbitry in arms. But if you look up there on the horizon, you can see a bad moon rising, and trouble is definitely on the way. As here come the Knights of Inuminas, almost full, having been held in reserve until the very last, and our infantry down in the dell between the remaining mounted companies for the Order forces. The Grey Company and those Knights are going to be in a lot of trouble. Mounted company here charging into my Hethely Tower. I'm going to countercharge and try and kill as many of them as possible. Eldar Quinga have been brought up as well. I think they're going to be the first to get flattened and feel the wrath of the Knights of Inuminas. Yeah, and they're going to break almost immediately because of that devastating downhill charge. I'm just going to carry on into my Hethely Tower. And that unit that I tried to conserve for so long is going to find itself in pretty dire straits. Some of these Hobbitry, I think they've either come back or managed to stop themselves from being routed. We did manage to surround, for the most part, at least a partial surround of the dismounted Knights of Inuminas. And the Ariagwe are doing their best. We've got some more reinforcements coming on over here. Some Knights of Inuminas have been drawn off to go after the Trollshaw Axe Throwers. Ooh, let's see if they manage to get a last-minute volley off. That would be amazing. Ooh, they do. Well, it's going to devastate the dismounted Knights. They're going to make contact with the Axe Throwers, who are going to immediately try to disengage. In the back here, you can see DI has come back with his tiny general's bodyguard retinue. We did manage to kill them all, however. So now they're going to come back to haunt us. And it's very, very close at this point. 93 to 92. The Hethely Tower have pulled out of here, trying to get away from some of the cavalry. Maybe get into to DI's bodyguard and cut them to pieces. That would be amazing. Oh, and they're going to charge into the Trollshaw Axe Throwers. I think I gave them an attack order, but they're going to hesitate a little bit and not do exactly what they were told to do. Yeah, there's the charge. It's going to be too little too late. And DI's bodyguard is going to be able to pull away. So we got going on over here. Eldar Quinga still got some. I wonder what they're up to. I wonder where that Grey Company is, more importantly. I can see them back here. I think I chased them all the way over here with my Commando Hethely Tower, who you saw earlier. And I knew if I could get in here against the Grey Company, I could slaughter them. Which is exactly what those Elven units are doing. Let's go ahead and turn things up a little bit here. Sooner or later, however, Rules is going to notice. He's going to begin to pull out the Grey Company. I'm not going to be able to get them all, unfortunately. If only I could just get to his general, though. He's right there. There you have it. Grey Company driven out of position. Rules, I think, realizes that running in this single direction instead of trying to run loops around me is probably not the greatest idea, and is leading to the Grey Company being out of position when they could be used to great effect against us right now. Knights of Inuminas down to 18. Managed to destroy the dismounted variant, however. Eldaritar Spearmen Moving to engage the Knights of Inuminas. I've also got some of my Yargyagwe Nanwaith nearby in close attendance. The Knights of Inuminas not going to want to stick around for that. Back here, Eldar Quinga. Able to be used to great effect here. I think they're trying to target down the Knights of Inuminas. But unfortunately, they're going to get hit from the rear by the Dunai Mounted Company. Goddess Newhane is not going to see it coming. And it's going to devastate that unit. If they had turned around, they might have done a little bit better. Thorn trying to help out a little bit with some of his Trollshire Axe Throwers, but there's barely more than a handful left. And those Mounted Company, while they do suffer some casualties, they're going to devastate that unit of Eldar Quinga, down now to half the strength it was before. A meager 13 from the 35 that they were at previously. Hobbitry at Arms moving in as well. Obviously freshly come back from routing. Pulling back my Yargyagwe Nanwaith, trying to conserve their numbers and prevent my general from being captured. Also get in here to try and help the Eldar Quinga if I can, but again the Grey Company hitting us hard. Knights of Inuminas as well, charging in from the rear. Let's go ahead and turn things up a little bit. DI's bodyguard coming in as well. My Yargyagwe Nanwaith are on their last legs. I'm going to try and get in here amongst the Eldar Quinga. Try and deal with some of these hobbits. Maybe rout them if I can. There's my general fighting on the front lines. Stabbing hobbits in glorious fashion, left and right. Trollshire Axe Throwers destroyed by DI's remaining army. Looks like I managed to catch the Grey Company with my Hetherly Tower. Once again, 7 of them remaining. They've really been dogging these Grey Company the entire game. I had no choice. Normally I would never chase after horse archers like this with infantry, but I didn't have a choice. Yeah, it's going to be 95 to 98. And ultimately is going to be a close attacker victory. We definitely, in terms of like things we could have done better, we definitely threw away a lot of units. Like looking over here, there's a lot of dead Eldaritar that didn't need to die. That would have been extremely useful at this point in the battle. That might have helped us hold this and never have gotten to the point that we were at in the first place. But I think probably the biggest thing that killed us was the Grey Company. My Mirkwood army had a single archer unit in it, so this obviously wasn't a very finely tuned scenario. And the Grey Company were super overkill, as we saw, by them shredding like 2 units of my regular rank and file, of which I had very few to begin with. I think I had like 6 or 7 units in this battle. And then doing a number on my general's bodyguard as well. It just kind of undid a lot of careful planning that we had made throughout the course of the battle, and I think it was probably an addition that didn't need to be there. But again, it was just the first try. It's kind of a fun game among friends, so it is what it is. My Hetherly Tower, I think this is the same company I was using to hunt down the Grey Company, making a name for themselves as cavalry killers, as they endlessly charge down these Knights of Inuminas. Rule's trying to get away with this unit. My Hetherly Tower, not going to let that happen, though. I think there's actually 2 companies here. There's about 9 in total. We're going to get a nice rear charge there. And those Knights are going to drop like a sack of bricks. Like so many potatoes. Ah, one more hit. There he goes. We're actually going to kill them all. So that's a nice little tidbit there. 99 to 96, I think, is going to be the final count. And we'll go ahead and fast forward to the last little bit here. Really all I'm doing is a little bit of maneuvering with my Hetherly Tower. I think I wanted to try and get a piece of DI's bodyguard, but I believe he was running away. You can't really blame him for that. I did just slaughter a unit of Knights of Inuminas. And my Hetherly Tower are going to go for one final glorious charge against the Hobbits. But their low numbers and fatigue is going to ultimately play against them. They're not going to be able to take down more than a few Hobbits. About 6 or 7 of the Hobbits died. A tough fight. And then another one of the generals is going to be captured. And that's going to be it. Now, as I mentioned, this is just a test kind of battle, and we'll see how the rest of it ends up going. But normally when generals are captured or killed or killed, quote unquote, killed in battle, it really only counts as like being wounded or whatever. So they will come back, but this was a test. This is just going to be, I don't think any of the generals are going to suffer any wounds. Like they'll come back, or we'll find some kind of story thing to either explain if one maybe was captured, or and the rest managed to escape, or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, take a look at some of my units here. Yeah, I think I had 9 in total. I had a very unorthodox army. It was a lot of fun to try and play with these unorthodox comps and these elements of an army that normally you wouldn't bring together. You wouldn't bring together without something else. Still, really cool. Mirkwood is definitely one of my favorite factions in 9.6.1 and in 9.7 moving forward. But you know, don't judge me for that. I'm not deliberately trying to slant the game in favor of Mirkwood. But yeah, absolutely one of my favorite factions. I love the way they play. I love the various playstyles that they have available to them. They're very versatile. They've got a lot of options. You do have to specialize a little bit, especially when it comes to your cavalry in particular. You need to kind of choose one or the other. You can't generally bring all of the cavalry that Mirkwood can field without sacrificing, I think, too much and risking becoming unviable as a result. But yeah, really cool army. Loved playing this scenario, but like I said, the Grey Company, if they weren't here, I think this would have been a pretty strong rebel victory. And you know, maybe I'm just saying that because they absolutely kicked my ass up and down in this match. But yeah, I don't think we were given enough tools. I had 1 spear unit and 1 archer, and there was a lot of cavalry we had to fight. So even if we made smart choices, I think we're ultimately always going to end up at this point, just because of a unit like the Grey Company that is so strong. So yeah, it definitely didn't need to be in this scenario, but although in any case, it was still a good game. It was 99 to 96. Like, that's really close. And despite the numbers you're seeing in front of you here, that's going to include units that were healed for the attacking side of things. So really, they only had probably less troops than what we had in total still remaining too. So it was a very close game. But in any case, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for the rest of the series when it comes out eventually. My name is Jordan, also known as JMonster. I'll see you guys later. Bye!